In today's series of On Your Uniqueness, we're going to be focusing on remote working for women and debunking the tech myth. And it is an opportune time to be innovative, to be creative, not only for like female entrepreneurs, but also for companies. And I can imagine that most companies have already started to consider that, and Maida is going to share her viewpoint on that as well. But it's taking into consideration what has happened over the past couple of years due to the pandemic in terms of moving away from the traditional working models to innovative ways of remote working. And what comes to mind for both of us, it's about also narrowing the gap for women. So it's about being fearless and embracing technology. So hello there, my name is Chico Matenda, and this is Maida Pork. So
Hi.
Maida,
Hi, Chico.
hi. So we talk like from different perspectives. I talk from like the entrepreneurship perspective, and Maida talks from the corporate professional perspective. And we tend to focus on women because we can resonate. Correct?
Yes. Oh, yes. And we have been there. So
Yes.
maybe 10 years ago, if you remember, Chico, there was a lot of debate around what would companies do? Would they allow their employees to work from home or not to work from home? And I do remember very well, Yahoo was one of the companies, and it was Marissa Mayer, I think her name, and she was very vocal about not wanting people to work from home. And the irony is, guess what has been happening recently? It wasn't a choice anymore. We were all forced to work from home, to work remotely. As you said, one of the blessings in disguise of this pandemic was to have forced us to be a bit more flexible and to learn new ways of working, to collaborate remotely. That was great. That was awesome. It helped a lot of people to find maybe a bit more personal time. But as we're going to discuss again from different perspective, you, Chico, from more the entrepreneurial tech perspective, and me more from the corporate perspective, not everything was rosy in terms of how it has impacted us as women in particular. So first, Chico, from your side, where do you see the most pros, or what we have gained from working from home?
Think working from home, in terms of like from like an entrepreneurship like perspective, I think it's given people the time to also pause. So when I say people, it can be like in the corporate sector as an entrepreneur, and then as an independent entrepreneur. So in terms of like thinking about what is purpose, what is meaningful, and how to offer solutions. How to be more creative in terms of addressing and embracing the tech field. Looking at the pros, there's the flexibility. Yeah, the flexibility in terms of women having more personal time in terms of like being like employees. Okay, and the hardship of that has also been that as a result of having that flexible time, there's been that pressure about having to maintain high performance. Okay, having to
Yes.
maintain high performance while at the same time managing household tasks, and at the same time also managing the aspect of children, women who have children being at home. So that in itself, in the cons, it has also affected some women, I think a higher population of women than men in terms of mental health and well-being overall. And when it comes to tech, I can give you an example. Let's say, for instance, the disparity at the moment in the tech industry is that there's a higher component of men who are in senior management positions, where if that were the case, that way they had to share a household, it's most likely that the woman would be more focused on attending to like the household, and also to the children's needs because of the differences in the demands of the work.
Yeah, we're still in this, believe it or not, in the time where everything happens with Wi-Fi and we communicate with, across the globe together. We are still back to this very gendered kind of division of labor where the women are the nurturers, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as something happens, the women go back into the kitchen, into taking care of the kids, and guess what suffers? It's the career, because there's no real, if it had ever existed, work-life balance has made it even worse, at least at the beginning, because of, at least for women who have children, for them to be able to take care of their careers and of the household at the same time. It created a lot of distractions. It created a heavy burden on the women as well. But let me continue on that in terms of pros and cons. And I think, as you said, one of the biggest pros for corporate ladies was the time management, because all of a sudden you had less commute time, less noise, when you work in open spaces in particular. It was also good for many of these ladies who were curious about what kind of jobs can I look for, what kind of career. They're at home, they have a bit of extra time in a way, and for a lot of them, they started exploring outside the box as well. So that was really a big pro as well. Now,
Definitely.
now let me go into the cons, and then I will go back into the entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. The working from home was not easy in terms of women assertiveness in a way, because communication became much more challenging, whether it was communicating managing up or managing down or managing sideways. It became much more complicated. It wasn't like, oh, let me go and speak with my supervisor, let me run this idea by you. You knock on the door, you go, you sit, and you have a conversation. It all became very kind of structured. You have to call the person, you are on Slack. It's, as you said, it's very taxing physically and mentally to be able to communicate. We also mentioned when we were talking together about that, the fact that there was a lot of micromanagement going on as well, in terms of, like checking, and are you doing, and are you online? Or I know certain of the ladies, when, their boss send them an email, and if they haven't answered in the 5 minutes, they're just like, you weren't on there. And for some of these ladies, it becomes such a stress that they even feel guilty to go to the bathroom. It's that silly. But there's this guilt that, oh my goodness, I'm working from home, I should be, working more. And the data are showing that actually people are working much more from home, much more in terms of hours when they're at home than, because you go outside, you grab a coffee or a tea or lunch with a colleague. So there's less me time, there's less we time, there's less kind of camaraderie or friendships that are being formed. There is less access to people, and
That
on
can
the
so I was
yes.
going to say that can also impact the trust level as well, to a certain point, in terms of like confidence building. That if it's something that you're constantly being monitored, then yeah, that can impact that as well.
It's exactly that, and it's right on point. It's a when, on top of, as you said earlier, the physical burnout of having to make it all happen, there's also the mental burnout of being constantly checked upon and having to constantly check upon other people to make sure that everything is working fine. For me, one of the things that I have been hearing throughout this year is this has created some sort of mismatch between women's career goals and aspirations and the reality. And the reality is that a lot of them feel they are falling behind peers, in particular, falling behind their male peers as well, who maybe have a bit more, not necessarily an advantage in itself, but less of a burden and less responsibilities to keep it all together.
And in some cases, in the tech industry, there is an advantage in terms of like men have being at a more senior positions and having more opportunities in that industry. So that's like just one case, an example.
Yes, and I think you will find also, Chico, that for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, there has been also the same kind of opportunity, and at the same time, same kind of some sort of burden as well, to be working from home, and it's still to be in this kind of innovative path, right? Because when you
Mm-hmm.
are in corporates, a lot of the corporates will give you access to innovation, to new learnings, and what have you when you are in the corporate. But when you are home, it feels almost like it's your responsibility to take care of it. And again, women don't have the time to do that.
Yes, no, it can impact on that as well, especially like the learning and development process, as you're saying. So then you might also start to feel like you're being left behind. It makes it even much more of a challenge in terms of embracing technology, because if you're not having the same opportunity to embrace tech, for instance, and somebody else is advancing, that you might feel more pressure as though you're being left behind in the training opportunities as well. Yeah, then that just links on like very nicely as well, because I was just thinking about like on the opposite spectrum for entrepreneurs, so people who are very like creative and innovative, that some women may have also gained that opportunity where, for me, for instance, I'm somebody who can be classed as an introvert. So in terms of my creativity, I when I was in my career, I was most creative in a quieter space. I worked at a faster pace. And for some, you could also be noticing that for some women, it's giving them that opportunity to exercise their creativity and to contribute more in a different way, because they have a freer space with many more distractions to be able to, harness their creativity and also to embrace technology more. So it's not all negative. There's also some like positive attributes there for those, for this people who have that opportunity to do that, for the women who've had the opportunity to embrace technology during the pandemic, during the lockdown period. And then the other thing I was also thinking about is just in terms of, I've been saying for like the longest time since I left like my employment, full-time employment, that I'm a digital nomad because of the environment that I have been learning and developing in consists of digital and IT, social media. And so the concept of a digital nomad used to seem like it's something that's so far removed and unattainable, but now it's something that can be seen as easily attainable. Yeah, that all of us or most of us are now working from home. So it's not so far removed. And remote working is also giving women the opportunity to realize that, especially those ones who are trying to aspire, if you're trying to aspire to become an entrepreneur, from an intern to an entrepreneur, that it's possible. You've embraced Zoom, FaceTime.
No choice, absolutely no choice
No
sometimes.
choice, other technical aspects, soft skills that you've had to adapt to very quickly within a short space of time. Now you're thinking, oh, now this is an opportunity to explore further. And I've been seeing a lot more women, due to the circumstances, because of the pressures that we've talked about of managing the household, they're now considering, how can I work in a more flexible way, where I'm also looking after my well-being? Could the next best step be me going out, like independently becoming a consultant, or for me to embrace like e-commerce,
Mhm.
which is tech, things that we'd never
Yeah.
thought about before. A lot more women are embracing like, graphic designs, creating websites, which have become easily adaptable as well, like in terms of like technology, easier for people to do that themselves now more than before. So there's greater opportunities as well. And I think for also employers to embrace the women who are being creative entrepreneurs
Mhm.
and to harness those skills. to champion women to also lead in that direction, to lead in senior positions, even director, board members.
Yes, yes. There are ways for companies to make things easier and to work with the situation rather
Yes,
than, as we said earlier, punishing in a way by monitoring, by distrusting, also almost like by infantilizing in a way, right? Women that, oh, you're spending too much time, I don't know, with your kids, so let me add another level of monitoring and of policing, right? um, I think it's as you said, Chico, it's a huge opportunity for businesses to change their ways and to change their relationships with their employees, to value talent, to value entrepreneurship as well,
yes,
and to
definitely.
value innovation and creativity in terms of how can you be of service to your job, to your company, yet have a life that you're satisfied with, or at least that doesn't get you into mental or physical burnout.
Definitely.
I'm going to jump now into what are certain of the solutions that women in jobs and careers right now working for corporates can do or can implement in order to go back on track with whether it's their careers, whether it's finding a new job, or as you said, even finding time to get to stay on track in terms of the tech, or in terms of building skills, for example. So among the things that I work with and I recommend people to do is asking for help. It might seem very basic, but if you don't know, if you don't say, I'm sorry, if you don't inform people of your situation, nobody is a mind reader. And I know women like to be nurturers and they like to do it all, and they don't want to see to look weak or anything. But asking for help is not looking weak, is committing to yourself. It's committing also to your job. And sometimes you may have to pass up a good opportunity simply because you don't have the mental or physical capacity to do it. And that is also self help, and that is also self care.
Mm-hmm.
I would say as well is work with your company on the same kind of vein, into where do you see yourself in 3 or 4 years in terms of your career path, in terms of being promoted and what have you. Just continue working with your managers, with your juniors, almost the same way you would in a normal environment, in a face-to-face environment. And when it comes to the situation where you are working from home with a partner and with kids and a lot of things happening, create clear boundaries. Negotiate with your partner, negotiate with your kids that from this time to this time, you are on meetings. In meetings, you are not to be disturbed. You're going to be disturbed, but after a certain time, people understand as well. Make your job a priority when it is time for the job, and your kids and partner and house life when it is. And just stay accountable, keep yourself accountable to your own goals, and commit to go back to yourself, to be in this sort of self-care where your career matters, your well-being matters. Hire a coach if you need, find someone to mentor you in the company. It's much more difficult remote, sometimes to find the right person. A lot of these conversation happen more informally than formally, but
Mm-hmm.
it's feasible. And we'll chat about that, right, Chico,
Yes, really.
in our future series as well. So just go
Well,
back to be who you are, what your goals, what do you want for yourself, and let go of the idea that you have to get it right 100%. Nobody's perfect. Perfection is a very good way for mental burnout, and right now we need women to drive innovation. We need women to work with company to improve things as well.
definitely. And I think that also ties in nicely with entrepreneurs. looking after your well-being as well, because there's this external social pressure to always be seen as doing very well or successfully. It's okay at this period to also pause and think about, how do I focus on addressing the need that's out there? To test out your creative solutions and take time on it through mentorship, so that at least during this period you have the opportunity to test things out, to develop your offer, your solutions to, for instance, people who need services most at the moment, small business owners, to approach them if you haven't had that experience in terms of like independent consultancy, to offer a solution to what they're being challenged to based on your creative or innovative ideas. Okay, so we will be providing further, resources about what else you could do. Some of the key examples I can give in terms of entrepreneurship is such things as this medium to test out your skills. You can make blunders like I've done in this session. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. Podcast as your testing ground, and to create educational information as well, where you have been like harnessing all this creativity, but you haven't known what to do with it. Now is that opportunity to embrace that aspect of it in terms of like the technology and soft skills in tech.
And if we were to draw a conclusion
Mm,
to all of that, for me, it started by saying to women, it's not selfish to to choose to continue a successful career. It's not selfish to continue improving your skills. It's not selfish to think about your future. It's not, we are not an either or. It's not I choose my career over my kids or my partner. It's we can have it both. We just need to be mindful as well of the kind of energy that we're putting into it, so coming more from an energy of building
yes.
rather than the lack, again we go back to that word, right? The lack of time, the lack of support. Find support around you. Start by supporting yourself and your goals.
And being fearless in asking for help or for stating it, for owning your sense of self-worth and sense of like well-being. And I'd also like to add for the employers as well, to nature what they see in women and encourage that, especially not being ageist, but older women as well, because sometimes when you're like older, you become deterred by technology, thinking, oh my goodness, it's this scary thing, this scary component. But once you step into knowing just the soft skills and the basics, it starts to also give you that confidence as well, to be able to actualize your potential, whether it's within this workspace or to do something externally as well. And it's an opportune time for, because one of the things that I was reading about was that due to the change in the climate, where most employers have had to close like their offices or companies and working remotely, now there's an opportune time, because most of your employees are working from home, to offer training. Training in technology, especially because I advocate for women who want to take on that that initiative to learn more skills in tech, as sometimes it's a missed opportunity earlier on in education for women, because it's not something that's pointed out to them as an opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's create a win-win situation here where we're working together,
Definitely.
employers, women, to create a better world in a way. I know it's bizarre to say, but I somehow think that from all of these things, all of these forced changes that we have seen, there are opportunities to build something new that works for most of us, rather than, again, the exclusion of women from the workforce. Because it reminds me, I know it's a bit off track, but it reminds me of these times where contracts were made on a golf course and women could not go on a
Oh,
golf
yes,
course,
my
right?
dad was one of them.
That is like, okay, what do you want me to do? Well, you need to learn golf. Well, no, maybe the contract should not be on golf courses, but in a setting that works for me as well. So let's change the word, and it starts as well with women. So
Yes,
let's not
definitely.
exclude ourselves from technology because it's scary. It's nothing is, you know what's scary sometimes, it's creating a new cake can be scary when you don't know how
Mhm.
to do it, but once you have started one or twice, then it becomes easier. So let's stay current, and let's be part again of the workforce and innovation.
Definitely. And to end it off, no woman or women left behind, with men championing us all together.
Yes, let's work together. Thank you,
Yes.
Chico.
Thank you, Maida. Until next time.
Absolutely.